Hi everybody, my name is Jeff Warren of greatsongs.ca, and thanks for joining me for Lesson 4 in our multi-part series, How to Play Guitar for Beginners. Now in Lesson 3, we learned how to play the G chord, the C chord, and the D chord. And in Lesson 4 here, we are going to learn 5 new chords, including the E major, the E minor, which is only slightly different, the A major, and the A minor, and the F major chord. When you're just learning to play guitar, it's important that you start off learning the first 8 or so chords that are used in literally thousands of songs, covering every genre from blues to rock and roll, pop to jazz to country and western to new country. These are chords that every new guitarist should know, and then you can venture off and learn several other chord shapes. In my book all about guitar chords and my second book Learn to Play Guitar, you'll find over 180 guitar chords. So you can build yourself up once you've learned those fundamental chords, and then you can venture off and learn so many other different chord shapes, including minors and dominant sevenths and diminished chords and augmented chords, and we'll get into all that theory later. But for Lesson 4 here, let's get started on the 5 new chords: the E major, the E minor, the A major, the A minor, and the F chord. So we're going to start with the E major chord. The E major chord uses 3 fingers on your fretting hand, fingers 1, 2, and 3. And we're going to start at the top of the strings here, and we're going to take finger 2 and press it down on fret 2 of string 5. And then we're going to take finger 3 and press it down on the next string over, that's string 4, on fret 2. So we're going to start with those 2 fingers. Now it's an easy chord to remember because those 2 fingers are both on fret 2 of strings 4 and 5. And then finally we're going to take our index finger, or finger 1, and press it down on the first fret of string 3. And that gives us, all 6 strings, gives us a full E major chord. Using this chord chart as a guide, once you've got your fingers placed in the E major chord, as I always do, I encourage you to strum down across the full open 6 strings and check that you can hear every string. Now if the finger, let's say my index finger here, was actually accidentally bumping up against the next string over, I'm going to get a dead string sound like this. You hear that? I got a dead string. And again, as I said before, the reason I got a dead string there is because the fleshy part of my index finger, finger 1, is bumping up against the next string over, which is string 2 in this case. So you want to check that your fingers are coming down, I've said it before, in a direct method. So if this is the neck of the guitar and these are your fingers, you need to be coming down directly straight down onto the fretboard with the tips of your fingers only. That is, you're not pressing down the fleshy fat part of your finger here, you're coming down directly like that. Okay, so when I hold the E major chord, I'm going to show you a close-up picture of how the fingers should be formed to form that chord. So you can see in this picture here that the fingers are not interfering with the adjacent strings on either side of it, and I'm getting a full E chord. Okay, so that's the E major chord. It's a nice full 6-string open chord. It sounds happy. Now the E minor chord is almost exactly the same. The E minor chord, we can see that we've only removed the index finger, but the second finger remains on the 2nd fret of string 5, and the 3rd finger remains on the 2nd fret of string 4. So if you look at those, there's only 2 fingers to place down, and we've lifted this index finger off. We now have a full 6-string chord, the E minor. Very easy. Now I want you to place that finger back on the 1st fret of the 3rd string, the index finger down, and now we have E major. Strum them, make sure you hear every string in the chord, and then remove the index finger again, and you have the E minor. Again, E major, E minor. Now you're probably asking yourself at this point, what is the difference between a major chord and a minor chord? Well, I'm going to get into chord theory a little bit later in the series, but for now what I want you to note as we're learning these new 5 chords is that a major chord sounds happy and a minor chord sounds sad. And there's really only one note in that chord that's different by 1 semitone. It's called the major third or the minor third. And in the case of the E chord, you can see we've got a major chord, and that note that our index finger in is a major third. And I'll explain that to you a little bit later on in the series, but for now I want you to know that the E chord Where that index finger is on right now is the major third. By moving it down one semitone, by removing it, we now have a minor third. So it's a major third or a minor third. And that's all there is to making a minor chord. There's only the changing of one note, and that is the major third down one semitone to become a minor third. And that's true of every chord, whether it's an A, B, C, D, E, F, or G, anywhere in the musical alphabet. We know that if we take a major third and we lower it by a semitone, it becomes, the entire chord becomes a minor chord. So we're going to learn a little bit more about majors and minors as we go along. But this is why I've chosen the E major and the E minor and the A minor and the A major in this lesson, because I want you to get used to the sound of a major happy chord and a minor sad sounding chord. So that's all I need to tell you for now about the E major chord and the E minor chord. And you're being sure to check. It's a full 6-string chord. You're checking every note in both of those. So give your hand a bit of a shake and relax a little bit. You'll find after pressing those chords along with me in this lesson, your fingertips get a bit sore. Give them a little bit of a rub and give your fingers a shake. Now moving along to the A major and the A minor chords, as you can see in the chord chart, the fingering is pretty straightforward. For the A major chord, there's 3 fingers, fingers 1, 2, and 3, placed on the 2nd fret of strings 2, 3, and 4. And we're going to play the A string open. And for the A major chord, we're only going to be using the bottom 5 strings, which is strings 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. And we're not going to play the E string up here. We're just going to play the 5 strings. Now, there's a funny thing about the A chord. Some people have a hard time fitting their 3 fingers onto those 2nd fret because they kind of get crowded in there. But just so you know, this is one of the recommended fingerings for the A major chord, is to place finger 1 on fret 2 of string 4, finger 2 on the 2nd fret of string 3, and finger 3 on the 2nd fret of string 2. The problem with that is I personally have fingers that are a little too wide to fit all the fingers in that positioning. So I can play the chord, but it's kind of difficult to do that. So a neat little trick that someone told me many years ago is to reverse the order of fingers 1 and 2. And as you can see in this new chord chart, in this case, and it makes it a lot easier to play, we're going to take finger 2 and press it on the 2nd fret of string 4. And then we're going to take our index finger, finger 1, and place it just a little bit back on the 2nd fret of string 3. And then we're going to take our 3rd finger and we're going to place it on the 2nd fret of string 2. So in that positioning, you're actually able to easily fit those 3 fingers onto those frets and make the A chord ring out. And I find personally that if you have fingers that are a little thicker, and a lot of us do, if your finger got caught in a car door or you just have stubby cigar type fingers, you're going to find that sometimes when you're asked to put a chord chart requires you to put those 3 fingers together in a group or any other combination of fingers, just try an alternate fingering that makes it a lot easier. Whatever positioning you've used, make sure you can hear all the strings in the A major chord. There I can hear all 5 of them. And now we'll move on to the A minor chord. Now, as shown in the A minor chord, if you look at it, I've left the graphic up of the A major chord so you can see again, as with the E major and E minor chord, there's only one note that's different, and that's the major third becoming a minor third. So in the A major chord, where we played these 3 notes, we're only going down one note, and that is, instead of having on the 2nd string your finger on the 2nd fret, we're going to slide it down to the 1st fret. And that's the only difference between the A major chord and the A minor chord, is that minor third interval. So here is the A chord again, and here is the A minor chord. To play the A minor chord, we're going to put our 2nd finger on the 2nd fret of string 4. We're going to take our 3rd finger and press it on the 2nd fret of string 3, and then our index finger, finger 1, on fret 1 of string number 2. And again, as with the A major chord, we're going to play all 5 strings. And again, we can hear the difference between the major chord and the minor chord is happy and sad. So with the A major chord, it's happy. With the A minor chord, it's sad. Has kind of a dissonant sadness to it. Now let's move on to the F chord. The F major chord looks a lot like a C chord. You remember in lesson 3, the fingering for the C chord, and here's the chord chart for it. It looks like this. The F chord is exactly the same, except these 2 fingers move over one string. They each move over a string. So this is the shape for an F chord. You'll notice that finger 3 is on fret 3 of string number 4. Finger 2 is on fret 2 of string number 3. Now I want to point something out though. You'll notice in the chord chart, you're supposed to use your index finger to cover both fret 1 and fret 1 of strings 1 and 2. But that's quite difficult to do. But you need to practice pushing down your finger. So I'm just going to deal with the index finger here. This index finger tip is now covering 2 strings. It's covering string 1 and string 2. So you get this sound. And you need that. As the other strings fall into place, you hear that full chord sound. But it's quite difficult to play. So another cheating method is to just leave that string out and just use the first 3 strings, that is the 3rd fret of the 4th string, 2nd fret of the 3rd string, and the 1st fret of the 2nd string. And just pick those 3 strings. Now if you have those 3 notes, you have an F major chord. It's perfectly acceptable, and a lot of guitarists will do that. Well folks, that wraps it up for lesson 4 in the series. I hope you found my lessons fairly easy to follow. I encourage you to write your comments down below, and be sure to click on my name down here beside my picture where it says Jeff Warren to access all the other lessons in this series. Just remember those 3 fundamental rules: practice, patience, and have fun with it. Now I'm going to practice these 5 new chords that we've learned, and I'll see you folks in lesson 5.